Public Works Committee meeting to order at 7:31.
7:30.
7:30. If you could please take a roll call, please.
Alderman Ames.
Here.
Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Curielli.
Here.
Alderman Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski.
Here.
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Start off with approval of minutes dated January 27th, 2022.
Make that motion. Second.
That passes. Next, or, excuse me, all in favor, excuse me.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes, there we go. Report and recommendation, there are 3 reports. First is the approval of the replacement for Public Works Vehicle number 501-117 in an amount not to exceed $35,034. That would be my motion.
Second.
All right, I know Director Lang has a presentation, so I'll pass it over to you.
What is 117?
What is that number? We can ask.
Director Lang, what is 117?
That is just another inventory number that they use in the vehicle
I mean,
maintenance.
what kind of
division.
vehicle is it?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's it's currently an F-550 with a utility body, and we're going to switch it to a transit van. This is used for meter appointments.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Go ahead. I know we have a second, so you may not need to spend too much time on it.
Sorry, Chairman, is this for the first item? I don't have any presentation for it, just the,
Okay, are there any questions? Pretty straightforward. Alderman Jacob?
2 questions for you. Are we getting a 2022 or 2023?
Director?
this contract is for a 2022. The 2023s aren't available, and we have no idea when they will become available, so.
Because I thought that one of the sheets said that only 2023s are being produced, and we're going to have to wait for it.
That's what we're finding for the pickups, but for the transit van, I believe it is a 2022.
Okay, and one more question,
Sure.
if I may. You know, we're getting a good deal on it, it looks like, but why are we not getting an all-wheel drive vehicle? I mean, we're in the winter, I mean, I think it was 5,000 extra, but, I mean, the vehicle's gonna be around for a long time. I mean, we have bad weather here. I would prefer getting an all-wheel drive.
So majority of our vehicles are not all-wheel drive. The trucks have an option to switch into 4-wheel drive when needed, for instance, while we're plowing, but every other time they're 2-wheel drive. The transit van, I don't know if they come with an option for all-wheel drive, but as this is not used for snow operations, it's not really essential to the vehicle.
And just for context, this is replacing the old Altoona from the water department's pickup truck, correct, right, Director?
Correct, yes.
But it's still driving around town reading water meters and stuff, correct?
Correct.
I mean, again, it's still driving through the snow
It'll
and
be
it
fine.
does have an all-wheel drive available. I mean, it was $5,000 more. It's still in the budget. I just think for the amount of time that vehicle's gonna last, you know, I hate to hear 2 years from now, why didn't we get an all-wheel drive? We have problems with this
I
guy.
don't think for that man that's relevant. I mean, this is truly, if he was appointment based, so he would probably reschedule appointments if it truly was inclement weather. I don't want to speak for you, but
No,
I know he
absolutely.
rescheduled on me.
Absolutely. We don't feel all-wheel drive is necessary for this vehicle, just like the admin vehicles and the community development vehicles. If it's not used for snow operations, typically we won't choose the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive option. Getting to and from appointments isn't really a concern for us. We'll get there one way or another.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Curielli.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes,
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Yes.
And Alderman Woods.
yes.
Great, that passes. Next up, an approval of an agreement between the City of Wooddale and Upright Interiors for business for the Public Works Facility Interior Furnishings Project in an amount not to exceed $111,808.34.
Second.
A motion, we have a second. Question?
Yeah, when I was looking at the bidders list, and I don't know if they got put on it, but Forward Space, who is a home-based company who supplies those type of things, is there a reason that we wouldn't reach out to them?
They actually were reached out to. They elected not to submit a bid for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but they were on the list that got
Okay,
the
as
advertisement.
long as we reached out to them,
We did.
I'm good. Thanks.
And just for clarity, not that Fourth Space does or doesn't, or anybody, but it was primarily commercial furnishings that we were looking for bidding on, correct?
Something-
Correct.
something that too.
Absolutely.
But that's primarily what they do.
They do that.
Office space. Nice.
And we did
Yeah.
actually,
This is like heavy duty, like public works coming in. Sorry, go ahead.
Chairman, we did reach out to, Forward Space actually reached out to us, rather, and had some discounted chairs, some surplus that they had, and we actually purchased those separately
Yep.
to save some costs on the bid as well.
I was gonna say, I know you guys mentioned that to us before, that they had some stuff, so we got a good deal there.
Yeah.
Did you have a presentation or anything here? Or
No, I just wanted to highlight that this was for both phases of the Public Works furnishing project, so Phase 1 and 2. So
And I
this will
know,
be the only furnishing bid that we advertise.
and we had talked earlier, and obviously in the budget, it was a budget for $100,000, so it's a little over, so he's gonna look at some line items to go down. I personally haven't been in the building. That couch, it's beyond like a bachelor couch or college couch. I mean, it's in bad shape, and I told my opinion, and what I would be in favor for is go with quality, commercial grade, because, these guys come off the street, and it took a beating. All their furniture took a beating, their equipment, so I don't personally think there's an issue with it being over 11,000 unless there's haste in what you have as a line item for any of those, but I appreciate you taking a second look. Any other comments or questions? Okay, could we do a roll call, please?
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Currielli.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes,
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
And Alderman Woods.
Yes.
And that passes. Next is an approval of an agreement between the City of Wooddale and Thomas Engineering for professional service for the fiscal year 2023 through 2025 Capital Road Improvement Program in an amount not to exceed $302,000.
Second.
Pass it. Okay, that'll be my motion. We
second.
have
Already second.
Alderman Sizmarsky will be your second. And I know Director Lang had some content you wanted to present or speak to. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure you're all aware by now of the $3 million which is allocated from the state capital bill to the city for road resurfacing. So the base proposal, which we put out for design engineering, includes that $3 million for a larger resurfacing program in fiscal year 2023. And then we would scale back the two remaining out years to around $500,000 in construction cost to allow ourselves to pay down some debt service as well as focus on some other areas of needed improvement. If for whatever reason that capital money does not come through, we submitted an alternate bid that's more closely akin to our current road program of around $1 million a year. And what you see here on the screen is the proposed base bid.
In the spread, if we were not to get the 3,000, when I was looking at the numbers, the spread is more even between years 1, 2, and 3, if we were not to get the money, correct?
Correct, yes.
And what would be the value of, if we did get the 3 million in grant money, what would be the purpose of loading it top heavy in the first year and then scaling second versus across all three?
Working with the state, the level of uncertainty, I suppose, as to when that fund will be available and for how long, we just elect to use it all in the first year there. And then from a cash flow perspective too, for the remaining out years, it allows us to, again, pay down some debt and then focus on some other areas of needed improvement like water main or storm sewers, I&I.
Perfect. Mayor?
I know I said it before, but just want to make sure, say it again. Any of these streets that don't have storm sewers on the entire block are going to be taken care of. That's correct, right?
Correct, yeah. In the proposal, 3 streets were identified specifically. but they did make a comment that they would look at localized drainage for each street and make improvements as needed, whether it's just grading or additional storm structures.
Just want to make sure.
Mayor, you're not talking about storm sewer, just grading?
No, storm sewers, some of those blocks,
Some don't have.
Right,
in
don't
that
have, right.
area
Yeah, so
don't go all the way to the end.
specifically, Arlene was called out down in Ward 3, doesn't appear to be working. Creel and Carmel in Ward 3 as well, and then Carter and Carmel in Ward 3, and then Creel in Ward 4 was specifically cited for stormwater improvements, as those were areas that were previously identified as having flooding issues.
So this,
Go ahead, Mayor.
so basically, some of these areas, the storm sewers don't go, like Arlene doesn't go all the way to Mill Road, it stops about 4 houses away, so if those 4 homes have rear yard drainage issues or whatever, they have nothing to tap into. And basically, those pipes are probably, I'm gonna say 10 to 12 inches, where we're putting in new pipes now at 24 to 30. Just wanna make sure we, because at some point, some of the Ward 3 streets, if we ever just do the south side, if, we determine we need more storage, we're gonna go back in and cut those streets up again.
Right. Anybody else have a question or comment? Alderman Jacob?
How many streets are actually being totally redone versus just repaved?
You mean, how many are reconstruction versus
Yeah,
just
reconstruct,
resurfacing? So far, Arlene has been identified as a street that will likely need reconstruction, and perhaps Itasca in Ward 4. Other than that, it's going to depend on the pavement cores which are taken during the initial development phase, which will tell us whether further streets need reconstruction as well.
Okay.
Oh.
With, to the mayor's point, I thought when we're doing full reconstruction on a road, we were gonna start upgrading piping, for storm sewers. Are we, is that factored into there for that, for those streets? Because you'd have mentioned those streets when you, that's said the other streets you mentioned before.
Yeah, we're gonna look at all stormwater issues and also any other capital improvements that may be needed, water main, sewer main repairs. Those are typically in the parkway, so it doesn't necessarily have to be dependent on the road program as well, but it's something that we'll look at as well.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a budget, maybe as Alderman Jacobs alluded to, this budget amount of 302 could actually get some of that reconstruction done?
So that's just for the design work.
Okay.
The construction costs are up
This is just professional
upwards of
services.
$3 million to $4 million.
That's- Okay. Did that answer, is that what you were concerned about?
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Address what the mayor's.
Okay,
Good question.
sure. Go ahead, Alderman Sismarski.
I know, you don't have to answer this one, Itasca's already got sidewalks, but does Arlene have sidewalks on each side?
Yes.
Okay, so neither, those are the only two that are being totally reconstructed this year?
That we know of at the moment, yes.
Okay, so there's no extra cost with sidewalks or curbs or anything, okay?
Correct.
Any follow-ups? Any questions? Any other content?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Catalano?
Yeah, just one question, Director. Will the residents be notified when the construction's going to start?
They do. Typically, we send out a letter a few weeks before the program starts, and then the resident engineer on the project stays in close contact with them regarding driveway closures or any other impacts to the resident.
Okay, and that will be next fiscal year, right?
That'll be coming up this summer.
Summer, right? Thank you.
Kudos to you guys. I know it was a hard process initially, but they have gotten very, much better at notifying it. Yes, City Manager?
Yeah, that's actually called our Neighborhood Improvements Program. There's a nice little logo and a package that goes along with each different project. So project-based, depending on how intrusive the project is, gets a different layer of communication. So we have a booklet for our neighborhood improvements, and this is obviously part of it.
Yeah, it's gotten much better with signage, that's for sure. I know I've seen it and commented on it, so kudos. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Ames.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Currielli.
Yes.
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
And that passes. items to be considered at future meetings. I have none. Anybody have any? Okay. And we'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
I'd like to call the order of Finance Administration Committee meeting. Let the minute take note that the same council members are present. And I need approval of the minutes of December 9th, 2021. Any corrections? There are none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is report and recommendation for fiscal year end in 2021. Audit report. Director Brad Wilson, can you do the introductions, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As required by statute, we have to do an audit presentation within 60 days of the date of the report. The report was dated near the end of January, so we are clearly within that window. With us here this evening, we have Mr. Nick Bava, it's B-A-V-A, from Sikich. He's a senior manager and the engagement lead for Sikich. You may not recognize him because the last few years we had Mr. Cervini here. Part of the audit RFP process that we underwent last year, we requested / required Sikich, if they wanted to rebid, to rotate the entire team. So that's why Mr. Bava is here. The partner is now Mr. Brian Lefebvre. He unfortunately could not make it tonight. He had a prior engagement. So the partners rotated, the engagement leads rotated, and the entire engagement team is rotated. And I believe also the resource partner, the second partner, is rotated as well. So aside from the name on the invoice, everything else internally has rotated, the entire team. Kind of get that fresh set of eyes, a different look at some things, different perspectives, different conversations. So that was the goal of the team and partner rotation, and I think that's worked out well the first year. That's pretty much all I have, so if it's okay with the chairman, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bava for a brief presentation.
Good evening. As Brad said, Nick Bava, Senior Manager with Sikich. Thank you to the mayor, members of the council for having me here tonight to present the results of the city's audit as of April 30th, 2021. Ultimately, as part of the audit process, we issued 5 separate reports this year. The largest document, as usual, is the annual comprehensive financial report. We issued the auditor's communication to members of City Council, the management letter that's required by Illinois compiled statutes, the examination compliance report in accordance with the state specific to the tax increment financing district of the city, and then lastly, we assist with the electronic filing of the annual financial report for the state comptroller. I will highlight some items out of the annual comprehensive financial report, but we'll be happy to address any questions about this year's audit. If you're following along, I'd like to start on page Roman numeral number 3 of the annual comprehensive financial report, the large document. This is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Oh, sure.
What we're going to put up on the screen, so easier to follow along.
No worries.
Easier on these old eyes.
There it is.
Yeah, it's $60 a month now, or $60.
Okay, so this is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This certificate is specific to the audit from the prior year, as that audit goes through an independent review from the Government Finance Officers Association. This certificate is above and beyond what is required as far as annual financial reporting goes in the state of Illinois, both from an Illinois compiled statute standpoint as well as what's expected from generally accepted accounting principles. This report in front of you tonight is prepared in the spirit of full disclosure, accountability, and transparency to the residents of the City of Wooddale. And I just wanted to congratulate the city for continuing to complete this report. This is the 34th year that a certificate has been received. And as part of this year's audit, we expect that the 35th certificate will be received once that report has been reviewed. We're going to go to the independent auditor's report on page number 1. There it is. So this page is the beginning of the independent auditor's report, and it stretches 3 pages long. This is probably the most important 3 pages in the document in that it articulates our independent audit opinion on the financial statements for this fiscal year. The second paragraph down, management's responsibility for the financial statements, articulates that it is city management's job for preparing these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The following paragraph, auditor's responsibility, articulates that as the city's independent auditor, it's our role to develop an opinion on those financial statements in accordance with tests and procedures that are outlined through generally accepted auditing standards. As we move to the top of the next page, the opinions paragraph documents that based on our tests and procedures performed, the city's governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund and the aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Wooddale as of April 30th, 2021 is presented fairly in all material respects. This is what is referred to as an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance that we as a city auditor can provide for a fiscal year audit. So this articulates that it's these financial statements are indeed free of material misstatement. The next section over, beginning on page MD&A 1, is the management's discussion and analysis. This section stretches 13 pages, and it's a required part of the report as part of the annual comprehensive financial report. It's a section I always recommend that council review as part of this year's audit, as it gives management the opportunity to provide context and analyze the certain changes that occurred as far as fiscal year 21 is concerned when comparing to the previous fiscal year 2020. There's underlying reasons as to certain increases or decreases, and really provides nice context in terms of what occurred during fiscal year 2021. Making our way into the financial statements, let's start on page number 9. So this statement is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the city's governmental funds. This includes all of the city's major funds that were reported this year, as well as an aggregate column for the city's non-major funds. As far as the major funds, we reported the general fund, the capital projects fund, and the tax increment financing district fund. For the non-major governmental funds, that makes up funds such as the motor fuel tax fund, debt service funds, and the funds that are restricted for certain property tax levies, things of that nature. Starting on the left, the general fund column, I'd like to point out that the overall change in fund balance was a small decrease of about $37,000, leaving a total ending fund balance of about $9.15 million. Overall, revenues and expenses were relatively break even. The fund did recognize about $780,000 of COVID-19 relief funding from the county. Otherwise, everything overall was in line with budget, which correlates to a rather break-even year for the general fund.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Alderman.
just to make sure I understood that. So we were break even without the $790,000 from the county?
That is factored in as far as the ending change. So if you factor that out, about, you call it $800,000 decline in fund balance for the fund.
Nice work.
Alderman Jacob?
Is there any way to make that a little bigger, Brad, so we could actually read the numbers on there?
I was trying to show the whole screen, but yeah, we'll make that bigger, sure.
So the second column from the left is the capital projects fund column. And that indicates a planned drawdown of about $10.4 million from a fund balance perspective. Fund balance ended at just shy of $400,000 at the end of this fiscal year. And you'll note that that primarily is driven through about $13.1 million of capital outlay expenditures during the fiscal year, all of which were budgeted for and all of which are currently capitalized as of the balance sheet date. So I think overall the main project out of the fund this year, the largest project, was the stormwater project that is currently in construction in progress as of the balance sheet date. The next fund over, the Tax Increment Financing District Fund, had an increase in fund balance of about $985,000. It's really no more simple than the property tax increment outpacing expenses for the fund during the fiscal year.
Mayor?
Is that for both TIFs or one?
This is TIF District Number 1.
Only, an increase.
Go ahead.
And then the final column on the right, the non-major governmental funds column, that aggregate change between the non-major governmental funds was about $928,000, ending with a fund balance of $4.2 million. Peeling back the layers on that $928,000, one of the primary drivers for the increase was the motor fuel tax fund and the Rebuild Illinois Fund receipts that came in to the tune of about $550,000. So overall, when you look at fund balance for the city's governmental funds, the total change was $8.5 million, of which the major part of that came from the capital expenditures out of the capital projects fund. We're going to move a few pages ahead to page 13, Brad. This is the proprietary funds income statement. Perfect. So this is the similar statement for the city's enterprise funds, the water and sewer fund, and in this case, the non-major enterprise funds, which are made up by the commuter parking and the sanitation fund. From a water sewer fund perspective, the change in net position was just over $1 million, ending total net position at $20,072,000. Overall, the fund continues to pay off and reduce the liability specific to the 2012, now refunded 2020B bonds. As the principal is paid down, the liability decreases and net position increases. In addition, there were positive changes as far as the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund and the water and sewers allocated net pension liability was transferred to a net pension asset this year due to favorable changes in the pension plan.
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quick on the water sewer operation, when you say $20 million net position, that's not in cash, correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure people understand when they look at these numbers, that why they got $20 million, what's going on? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
For the non-major enterprise funds, the change in net position was $517,000, a decrease to about $1.4 million. And the primary driver in that decrease is the commuter parking fund. As council, I'm sure, is aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted those municipalities with the commuter parking. So as transportation into the city improves, hopefully that will correlate positively for the commuter parking fund. Overall, enterprise funds had a positive change in net position of $500,000 for the fiscal year. The last section, Brad, is on in the footnotes on page 28, footnote number 3. Yeah, one more page up, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to point out to council tonight that this footnote is specific to the city's capital asset activity for the fiscal year. This reflects any additions in capital assets, any disposals in capital assets, any depreciation. This first schedule here is specific to the city's governmental activities, and you'll note that the overall additions during the fiscal year came out to about $12.4 million. Of that, the large portion is sitting in construction in progress of $11.7 million. When that project is complete and it turns into a serviceable asset, it will be moved down to the capital assets being depreciated section and then be depreciated in accordance with the city's capital asset policy. And then the next section is the same schedule, but for the city's enterprise fund activity. Overall, there wasn't anything of significance from a capital perspective in the water fund, the commuter parking fund, or the sanitation fund. Existing construction in progress was placed into service, and then there was around $240,000 of additions from a capital perspective. So Overall, a relatively quiet year in capital with the water sewer fund compared to governmental activities, but I just wanted to point that out as part of the discussion tonight. That concludes my presentation. Thank you to Brad for his help during the audit. He's very helpful in our main point of contact, and thank you to the mayor and council for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Mayor, you had a question?
Brad, real quick, just so the residents, what is the percentage of cash? How many months of cash do we have in reserve still?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, based upon this audit report and the final year expenditures, I forget the exact number, it's about 70%, which is a little over 8 months, if you account for things. And there's also receivables that drive that a little bit higher, so money that would come in, you know, sales tax, things like that, they're in arrears 3 months, so that money would be coming in, you know, should the worst happen. But right now, all in, it's about, give or take, 8 months again this year.
And how much does that relate to in dollars?
Between 8 and 9 million.
Okay. Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, and just for the sake of the residents as well, could you just explain what the enterprise fund is so people understand that? Like the water and sewer, just so people know when we talk about that.
Sure. So an enterprise fund, in parts of the audit report, you'll see them referred to as business-type activities. So an enterprise fund, the concept is that it could be its own business entity. Like you'll see, there's some JAWA, some Joint Action Water Agencies, so that's its own business. There's Illinois American Water, its own business. You know, obviously there's companies that run parking garages and metro stations and whatnot. So the enterprise funds are intended to be self-sufficient based upon the revenues that they generate for themselves, only from the fees that they could generate if they were their own business. So for example, a private water fund wouldn't have the ability to generate sales tax per se, or property taxes per se. So including those in the calculus of how to fund an enterprise fund would not be something you would want to do, because it wouldn't be something that you could do if it were its own business entity. So that's why the fees and rates are set the way that they are, is to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, as if they were their own business. I don't know if Mr. Bava has anything else he'd like to add, but.
No, that covered it.
And
Follow
again,
up.
just for residents' sake, so you couldn't take money out of our reserve fund to help pay for the water and sewer, whatever, that would not be allowed.
Go ahead.
That would not be recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If there are no other questions, I want to make a motion to accept the report as proposed. We have a voice. Second. We have a voice vote on it, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And items to consider at future meetings. Fiscal year end in 2023 budget coming up February 24th, 2022. And water rates coming up April 28th, 2022. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chairman. Director.
So yeah, you're the chairman. Just a quick note on the budget, the PDF, the electronic file will be sent out tomorrow. Hard copies will be available no later than Monday. It's possible we'll have some done tomorrow, but for sure Monday they would be available. So if you're around tomorrow afternoon, you can give me a call and we can see what we have. But the electronic copy for sure will be coming out tomorrow, and no later than Monday the hard copies will be available. If you don't collect it earlier in the week, it'll be waiting for you on the dais next Thursday.
Thank you, Director Wilson. Any other items to consider for future meetings? If there are none, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.